Hey everybody, happy Thursday. I just wanted to jump on live to share about our autism journey so far. Of course, it's not over because I guess it never ends, right? But I feel like it's something really important to talk about, and although I mention it and make posts about it, I have never gone live about this particular topic because it's hard for me. I've recorded videos and posted them, but I've never gone live because it's just something that's hard for me to talk about. But I feel like if it's hard for me to talk about, then there are other people out there who, find it hard to talk about too. So if I can help somebody in any way, that is always my goal. And I feel like sharing this, because it's a huge part of our lives, is important. And so if I can, I always say we don't need to spread awareness because a lot of people are aware of autism. Most people know what autism is, but we need to spread acceptance. And so that's kind of like my mission. I'm a mom on a mission to spread autism acceptance. And by sharing my son's story, that's a great first step. So hopefully I can make it through this without crying. I should be able to, because I kind of gave myself a mental pep talk, but you never know. You can't help your emotions. So I have 4 children. I had 4 kids in 5 years. Jacob is my 3rd child. When he was 2.5 years old, it was Christmas Eve, and we had family over. And my father-in-law mentioned that something wasn't right. And I got so mad about that. Like, Mama Bear came out because I was like, who even says that? Who says something's not right with him? He's fine, And so my father-in-law, and thank God for him, honestly, he said, he's not answering me when I'm calling his name. He's not looking me in the eye. I said his name 7 times before he looked at me. He's like, just maybe have him evaluated. So that was on Christmas Eve. And, so what are you going to do on Christmas Eve? Everybody, hey, Justine, everybody, it's the holidays. You're not really getting it anywhere. So I was in total denial. I was just like, absolutely not. He is perfect. He is just fine the way that he is. Maybe he didn't answer you because, he doesn't really know you. And so my husband, God bless him, he's like the research king. And so he looked up, girl, don't make me cry. He looked up, autism. We weren't really familiar with what it was, but, we had heard of it. It wasn't as popular at the time to us, and none of our family members have it. We didn't have any friends that had children on the spectrum, so we were kind of unfamiliar with it ourselves. So my husband looked up signs and symptoms of autism, and Jacob had so many of them. And so me, because I was still in denial, I was like, yeah, well, so what if he does the same puzzle over and over and over? He's well behaved. So what if he lines up his cars? He just likes to play a particular way, like he walked on his toes. He, didn't really make good eye contact. He wasn't speaking very well. He had a lot of the symptoms. And so I still had a little bit of hope that it was just like a fluke. And, maybe he needed speech therapy because our older children needed speech therapy. But we had him evaluated. And, I'll never forget that evaluation. It was gut-wrenching. He struggled. He had temper tantrums. He just was beside himself. He cried. He actually hit the psychologist, which was like mortifying. But he was just so frustrated, and it was so hard as a parent to watch that. And the psychologist said, before he left, he said, I have to fill out my report and I have to do the paperwork. He's like, but, I just want to warn you that, he's on the spectrum. And I was like, no way. Nope. Still didn't believe it. And it was about a week before we got the official report, and the psychologist called and he diagnosed him with PDD, NOS, and my life, like, this is gonna sound dramatic, I'm not gonna cry, it stopped. Like, it was just, like, it wasn't completely unexpected because, like, I knew in the back of my mind, but, like, to hear it, it totally just turned my life upside down. And, I felt guilty. and I felt horrible. Like, I felt horrible for him. And I was never ashamed. Like, I'm never ashamed of his diagnosis. I just feel bad for him. Not because he has his diagnosis. It's hard to explain, but it's like, life is hard enough, and kids are hard enough. It's like, why do you need this added thing to make it that much harder? And he didn't, it wasn't really that big of a deal, like, with the socialization and stuff like that when he was younger, but, like, now he's 7, and I see it. I see it when he's with his peers, and I see it when he's around other children, and you can see that he wants to fit in, but he's a little bit different. And the kids don't know, it's not their fault, but, like, he's not always included because he lacks, like, the social skills, and, like, they realize it. And he also likes, a lot of kids on the spectrum, like, they like to, play by themselves, and they're loners, and they do parallel play and stuff like that, but it's just, like, it is beyond devastating. So he was officially diagnosed when he was, like, 2 years and 9 months old, and we quickly got thrown into, autism parent life, therapies, preschool, doctor's visits, and the poor thing, like, he went from being home with mommy all the time to 27 and a half hours of therapies and school every week, and it was really, really hard. And so, before I go any further, I just want to say, because and I've mentioned this before, but, we grieved, and I feel like that's totally normal, and people didn't understand it because they were just like, why are you grieving? Like, he's healthy, and they just didn't get it. And so one thing that somebody said to us, more than one person said, like, get over it, it could be worse. And so I just want you to know, just to prepare you, if a family member's child ever gets diagnosed on the spectrum, or a friend or something like that, don't say that. Because for me, I know things could be worse. I know there are children out there who are fighting for their lives, and I know that it could be worse. But for us, in that situation, that was the worst case scenario, and that was the worst thing that could happen to us in that time. And what we needed was support. We needed people to not treat him differently because he had a diagnosis, because autism is something that a child has or a person has. It's not who they are. Like, I hate that term autistic. Like, it's like nails on a chalkboard for me. Jacob has autism. He's not autistic. It doesn't define him. It's something that he struggles with every single day, but it's also something that he works so hard to overcome. And, like, legit, my 7-year-old son is my hero, because he has faced more in his 7 years of living than some people will face in their entire lives. And he's so strong, and he wants to fit in, and he wants to be loved, and he wants to be included. And, he's starting to realize that he's, different than other kids, but, he works really hard to improve and get stronger and to learn skills to have a better life. And he's just like, he's amazing. So, yeah. I hope this is making sense to you. It's just, it's really emotional. This is probably why I don't talk live about it. But, so he started going to school. That's when we found out that he had a gluten allergy and a dairy allergy. We're lucky enough that my mom and my stepdad are friends with an amazing functional doctor who, helps children on the spectrum and all sorts of people. And so we went to see him right away, and we had a stool test done, which, poop, I said this before, but your poop tells you a lot. We had a stool test done, we had blood work done, we found out about his gluten and his dairy allergy. We found out that he had severe vitamin deficiencies, and actually vitamin A and D deficiencies are really common with children on the spectrum. So if you haven't looked into that and you have a child on the spectrum, that's definitely something to look into. It's just a simple blood test. And he was severely deficient in everything. Iron, all of it. And, that was one of his things, was like, he slowly started to cut things out of his diet until he was down to just literally, he was eating 5 or 6 things, and they were all tan. They were literally all tan or orange. Goldfish, pretzels, waffles, oatmeal, and peanut butter sandwiches, so of course he was vitamin deficient because he wasn't eating a well-balanced diet. So we cut out the gluten, we cut out the dairy, we got him on some good quality vitamins. And, you know, I don't know if you've ever heard of gluten fog, but it's a real thing. And so he, you know, like I said, you would say, Jacob, Jacob, Jacob. And he would take him a while to actually like look at you, you know. A week, like 7 to 10 days after cutting out gluten, I'll never forget. It was like he was sitting at the kitchen table and he just like was looking around and he was seeing the world for the first time. I'm not even being dramatic. And like he looked at me and he was like, "Hi, mommy." And I was just like, what? Like, what? And, you know, it was between the nutrition, you know, changing his diet and getting him on the vitamins and getting him in intensive therapy. Like, he exceeded everybody's expectations. He mastered programs that his ABA therapist said took children years to master. He's everybody's favorite. Everybody that meets him still to this day just loves him because he's just truly amazing. And he's made so much progress over the years. When he started out his first ABA therapy sessions, I had to print out pictures of all of our family members, you know, just like our immediate family members. Me, my husband, even my dog, Jordan, Jason, and Jillian, because he didn't know, like he would, you know, his therapist, Erin Kelly, she's amazing. She would point to me and say, "Who's that?" And he would say, "Daddy," because he couldn't put two and two together. So I know that he knew who I was. Like, I know that he knew that I'm his mom. Oh my God, stop crying. But he didn't know to call me that. So I had to print out pictures, and he had to, like, even something simple that, like, we take for granted. You know what I mean? Like, he had to learn to call me mommy. He had to learn to call us all by our names. Like, it's incredible to think back on that, to how he couldn't even put two words together, you know, to ask for things. And, you know, he would say, "Pretzels, please." And he would be so proud of himself. And now here he is. He's like amazing. So, you know, if you're starting out on your journey and you feel like you're scared for the future, because, you know, I was, just know that there's hope, you know, and that our children can do great things, and that even though it's hard now and it seems like they have so far to go, they're gonna do amazing. You know, you just have to keep with it. You have to stick with it and, you know, just be their biggest advocate. And I swear, he has taught me so much about life and to not take things for granted, because, you know, he's my third kid. Well, I had 4, but, you know, all these things that Jordan and Jason did my first 2, you know, I took for granted. And it wasn't until I saw him struggle and have to learn everything, simple things, you know, it's literally everything, that I know, you know, how lucky I am and how lucky other people are. So he's truly amazing. He's 7 years old now. He's going to be 8 in May. And, you know, he struggles socially, but we have him in a social skills class and he's doing amazing. And, you know, he knows about his diagnosis. I had to tell him because he asked me, you know, why he was different last school year. And because he asked kids to play and you know, they told him no. And he said, you know, everybody thinks I'm weird, or, you know, why do I do different things? You know, like he hums music. That's one of his things. And it bothers people. I mean, it bothers his siblings. I mean, heck, sometimes it bothers me because, you know, it's like a constant thing. But, you know, he asked me, and so I told him, you know, and that's like a personal decision. I wasn't sure if I should tell him or if I shouldn't, but he asked me, and so I told him, and I had to tell his siblings too, because they would get frustrated with him. And I just had to explain to them that, you know, we're all special, but Jacob's a little bit extra special. He needs a little bit more help. And the way that his brain works is a little bit different than how ours do. And we just need to be patient with him and just love him and support him. And my children are amazing. Jason, his older brother, he protects him and he looks out for him. And, you know, I'm truly blessed. And I feel like, as much as it sucks, I don't know. Somebody once asked me, would you change it? And I felt like, first of all, that's a really sucky question. But no, I don't know, because that's who he is. I wouldn't change my son or trade my son for anything. He's amazing, and, you know, I'm so proud of him. And that's all I got, you guys. I gotta go cry myself to sleep now. I said, I'm not gonna cry. I gave myself a pep talk before I came on here, and I said, you can do this, you can get through this without crying. But, you know, it's hard. Even all these years later, 5 years later, and it's still hard, you know? You don't think about it every single day. Like, I don't think every single day, oh, my son's on the spectrum. But then there are moments when, like, their teacher says, you know, like, oh, they're struggling with XYZ, and you're just like, you know, you're faced with it all over again, and then you feel all the emotions all over again, you know? So if you're out there and you're struggling, I feel you, but you're not alone. And the most important thing is that if you know somebody who has a child on the spectrum, just be there for them. We don't want you to treat our child differently. We don't want, you know, than any other child. We just want our kid to be included and to be treated the same, just like the children on the spectrum do. They just want to be just like everybody else. They're not that much different. They just, you know, they have autism. And that is not like the worst thing in the world. So if you know somebody, offer support, you know, hang out with them, call them. A lot of the times we feel really alone. And I know for me, it was hard for me to tell people at first, not because I was ashamed, but like I said, just because I didn't want anybody to treat him any differently. But then if he did something because of his diagnosis, I didn't want people to get annoyed because he couldn't help it. So just make sure that you know, are there for that person so that they know that they're not alone and that you understand as best as you can. Do a little research if you have to. You know, just be accepting. It's all about acceptance. We don't need to spread awareness because, you know, nowadays everybody knows about autism. Unfortunately, the numbers are climbing, but we need acceptance, and it starts with you. You need to be accepting. You need to teach your children to be accepting, because chances are they're going to come in contact with somebody who's on the spectrum, and that kid is going to need somebody who supports them and wants to hang out with them and won't treat them any differently for things that they can't control. So that's our story so far. It's a never-ending journey, but I'm happy to say that my son has made tremendous progress, and he keeps moving forward and moving ahead and not letting this hold him back. And, you know, I couldn't be more proud. So let me see. Let's see who else. It can be worse, but yeah, it can be worse, but nobody knows what it's like until they walk in your shoes, and those are big shoes to fill. You're so right, Justine. And don't stare if a child is exhibiting self-stimulating behavior or other behaviors because it's rude. It's true. And, you know, but I feel like a lot of times too, people don't realize, but, you know, especially children, like if they see something, then they're going to stare. But all we can do is just set the example and teach our kids, you know. It's unfortunate that the numbers are climbing, but they are. So if you have a child on the spectrum and you feel alone, you're not alone. I'm here for you. You can message me anytime. I don't know everything, but I know some stuff that I've come across on my journey, and I'm always there to support and help anybody. So I hope that you enjoyed hearing this and watching me cry, even though I didn't want to. But I hope you enjoy the rest of your night and spend a little time this month educating yourself about autism and spreading acceptance, because even though every day is Autism Awareness Day in my house, it is Autism Awareness Month for the month of April. So guys, enjoy the rest of your night, and I will talk to you later. Bye.